Hi, it's me, Stitches. Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to my channel. So let's go ahead and get the formalities out of the way and introduce myself. If you're new to this channel, my name is Stitches, and we do crafting, cooking, home repair, home decor, a lot of stuff that is kind of random, and if you like that, go ahead and follow along. Today's video is going to be more of a promise that I made to a friend several years ago. So, if you don't know, I, every once in a while, do make a fursuit for friends. So, this video is probably going to be part one of I don't know how many, because I'm going to have to work on this again on my 2 days off that I have. Step one is to go ahead and get the pattern out so we can go ahead and get started. So if you're not aware what this is called, we refer to this in the costume industry as a customer's Bible. And basically it's a project book. Everything dealing with one subject in one folder. In my folder, I have everything that relates to the fursuits that I've made over the years. This is my Leo. Even though it's a big cat, I changed it up so that it would be an otter. They have semi the same features, and hence why I chose the big cat. I purchased this pattern back in 2021 or 2020. I'm not quite sure, but I'll go ahead and link the store down in the description box below so that you can find the same information that I have, or if it's still available. I will be going ahead and using several of the patterns that are in here, including the paw pattern from the same company. So we're going to go ahead and go get our supplies together, and I'll show you what I do have and I have already purchased, which you can probably see a little bit of it right there. Okay, so these are some of the things that I've purchased when I went out to Joann's thinking that they were going to be doing their, closeout sale. I bought 3 of these wolf fur stockings. They were originally $29.99, and I got them for like $4 a piece. So I got 3 of them because they only had 3 left. This was all from their Christmas sale, so it's not quite their blowout closeout sale. But I also got 2 of these fur blankets. They were $44.99, and I got them for I think $10 a piece or $6 a piece. I'm not quite sure. But it was a lot cheaper to get these fur blankets and these fur stockings than it was to actually buy the fur, because the fur that was on sale was only 25% off of $50 a yard. So this was my cost-efficient, quote-unquote cost-efficient version of doing a fursuit. I also got some other supplies that I need to find throughout this whole thing because I have stashed them away. And this character is a snow leopard. One of my friends basically has asked me several years ago, I know it's, sorry Shinky, it's been several years now, and I've said I was going to make this, and it's just been, getting things together and life gets in the way. So I'm also trying to do this as affordable to me as possible, because fursuits are not cheap in any way, shape, or form. Are they not cheap? You're going to spend probably about $300 just on materials. So I have several foam left over from other projects, and I have some new fur, and I did purchase some things. I bought some new airbrush paints. I've never used these before. And I also got some airbrush thinner, which I've never used before. So I'm going to test this out on some of the leftover pieces of fur first. But let's go ahead and get started by at least, disassembling this. So let's get started with first taking apart the stocking so we know what we're working with. So, this is what we're working with. I was lucky enough to find that there is some white minky on the inside of the stockings. Now, minky is just basically a low pile type of fur. It does come a little bit longer than this, and yeah, it's just a very, very soft type of fur. Here is the outside of the stockings, which are furry, but you can see that the color is only on the very tips of the fur itself. So once you cut it, it'll be primarily white, which is good because we're trying to make this a snow leopard. This is where I'm going to basically be doing my pattern. I have to remember the fur is going that direction. So everything goes away from the muzzle. I'm going to have to cut 2 of these and cut 2 of those. Looks like it's going to take 1 stocking to do everything. Maybe. I have to cut 4. May have to finagle this a little bit because I want to get the primary fuzzy out of this. Now, the paw itself I could probably get out of this one because it is a low pile, and I'll show you what I do when I do the beans and everything out of this. I am still waiting for some things to come in, so I don't want to really cut anything out as of yet because I'm waiting for the nails to come in. And this is the blue minky that I'm going to be using for the paws and the nose and a lot of other things. Pro tip when working with faux fur is to get yourself a scalpel, okay? You can get these off online or you can get them at medical supply stores, but always change out your blade because when you're cutting the fur, you want to cut it from the back side so that it doesn't fray as much. If you go ahead and hack it willy-nilly, you're going to be shortening the furs in some areas and it's going to look pretty choppy. Cutting it from the back side is going to eliminate that. So basically, if I were to cut this little piece off here, again, be very, 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 very careful when it comes to this. See? It eliminates the amount of fur that's fallout or whatever you want to call it. So also, pro tip is to wear a mask so that you do not breathe in any of the fur fibers because you don't want something called groomer's lung. Groomer's lung is basically for dog groomers. They come, you know, when you're cutting all that little fur and it's flying in the air, you breathe it in and it gets stuck in your lungs. So you want to make sure that you wear a mask or a breathing apparatus, something to block the fur from getting into your lungs. So I'm going to go ahead and try to cut a little piece off of this thing so I can go ahead and test what the fur is going to do when it comes to being painted, and then be able to wash it and see if this is actually going to work as I try to, you know, I want to airbrush the stencils onto it, as this character is very elaborate when it comes to the markings that they have. And the amount of markings that are on this, I cannot piece this entire thing together. Which I can show you later on how to put a spot or something like that into the fur. But this one's just going to be a quick and dirty, all white, and then go back and stencil in all of the stars that this kitty cat has on its fur. So again, this is day 1, seeing if the pattern is going to work and making a mess of my entire workroom. So we'll see each other back for day 2. I may sound a little rough today, so this is primarily going to be like a voiceover later on. So I got my measurements for my friend's hand. I'm going to have to alter out these pattern pieces, but it's cold, so I have my heater on and I have some How It's Made running. So I guess let's go ahead and do all the alterations for this pattern. Just got the pattern done. I'm going to use the same fingers that I already have for the actual thing, since that didn't really change. The palm size has changed, and so has the wrist, so I had to go ahead and transfer that across all the patterns. This is going to be the upper part, so the paw pad is actually going to be on the bottom. This is just a template to trace that out, and I will go ahead and stack the two together and stitch it all as one piece, and then cut away the blue minky so that it leaves the paw pad. And you'll go ahead and flip it open, cut a little slit, and stuff in from behind. Let's go ahead and try to get these pattern pieces onto the fur so I can see what I'm working with. Okie dokie. I think I have what I need. I'm going to cut the palm of the glove out of the minky, along with the blue minky around the outside, which means I'm going to have to back this in some white cotton. Do I have white cotton? And I need to also come up with some fabric for the lining. And I think this is where I can stop for right now until I figure this out. So I just made another run to Joann's and got some fabric. Halloween fabric. It's 40% off. And the lining fabric for the glove. And maybe some, I don't know, it kind of looks like snowflakes, but they're more like little flowers. But I got 2 yards. And the fluff from Christmas was 70% off. So, got some more stuff. I started out laying out the pattern in the direction of the fur. Remember, fur needs to go away from the muzzle so that you have everything going in the right direction. I am not sure if y'all know how to actually change out a scalpel. So, scalpels come in, the blades come in a box. Put them off to the side. Turn the blade part away from you so you don't cut yourself. Get yourself a set of hemostats. Grab from the base, lift up, push away. Okay? I lock it into place so I can put it off to the side and attach the new one. The new one is it's a peel pack, so peel it away from you. Hold on to it. Again, you know the blade is going to be on the angled up part, so angle it in and pop it in place. And that'll put your new blade on so that you have a brand new blade. And if you're anything like me, you have all these empty medication bottles. I'm going to go ahead and just drop it in there. And that way you don't have to worry about it. The outside is strong enough for it to not cut through. You can use an old Tums bottle. You can use an old RIT bottle if you have one. You just basically want to do this, and when it gets full enough, then you can place it into the trash. Or if you really want to be that worried about it, go ahead and take it over to your pharmacy and put it into the sharps container. So that's my little trick. So I'm going to go ahead, and now that I have a new blade, go ahead and cut very, very carefully. And I cannot stress that enough, that please be very careful with this. It is an extremely sharp blade. You can use scissors, but I highly recommend going really slow and trying only to cut the backing of the fur, not the fur itself, because you don't want any jagged or sharp edges with the fur, and this will also reduce the amount of fur that falls out of the fabric backing itself. As you can see here, all I did is go around and cut everything using a firm surface to cut against and not my fabric table. So just be very, very careful again. I have the fur pieces that I need cut out for the one paw. I have to now find the minky that I put somewhere, and I'm going to have to cut out the paw part of the pattern. I need to cut this and this out of the minky. I need to find the second finger right there. So inner finger, outer finger, and then those are going to go like that. The next step would be to then sew the beans on, put the batting into it, attach this to there so that it folds up, and then hand sew everything together, and that'll be one paw down. And then I got to do the same exact thing to the other one. So as I lay out all the minky pieces that need to be cut, hindsight is 20/20, and that I should really have just marked everything out and then stitched on the dark blue minky to the white so that I could cut it out later on. As I found out that this type of minky was very stretchy, and I did deform a couple of the beans, but I learned from my mistake when I was making the second one. So as you can see here, I should have just kept everything together and pinned it and then sewn it. Hindsight again is 20/20, so learn from my mistake and continue with yours. Well, I've got most of it cut out. All I have to do is sew on the beans, and I'll do that by tracing this out on the back side and then placing another piece over the top, stitching around it on the other side, flip it over, trim very, 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 very carefully around, and that'll be the beans. Right now I have to go start getting dinner together because it is already starting to get dark, so till the next work day. See you later. I guess let's go ahead and start up where we left off. I have to make the beans for this, and that is going to be out of this blue minky. It's actually a blanket, so I need to cut about the size of the paw itself, because you want this to be bigger than the actual paw pad so that when you sew it, it basically just fills in the spot where it's at. I don't know if that makes sense. And then you just cut away what you don't need. So we want this minky to be on top, but I kind of want it in a direction. Okay. So we want that to be on top. Flip it over. This is going to go on this side, like so. And then this is going to go here. Now the lightest color that I have is yellow. So I'm going to trace this out in yellow, and then that way I can see where I'm stitching. And to help with minky on sewing machines, it's a good thing to have like a plastic bag, because then you can just glide across. If you don't have like a Teflon foot or something, this kind of works out the best. The next step, we're going to go ahead and do a very, very tight zigzag around it so that it basically blends in. So I got to go through my threads and find a color that will work. This may take a little bit of time, so go slow and be patient with it. You're basically making a blanket stitch all the way around the paw pad itself and the beans, so that you can stuff them later on and also keep the minky from fraying once you cut it away. So just take your time, it'll go through. Now that we have the paw sewn on, we can pull away the plastic and reveal where the paw is going to go. Okay, so there's a few little spots that it hung up on. Everything cleaned up. Now all I got to do is do the rest of the beans, and we got to go. And we have the paw finished. So next part is to actually start hand sewing all this. I need to basically stitch all these pieces together so that this can be attached to there. And I need to attach this to that, this one to that one, this one to that one, this one to that one, so that they are all one piece. And I need to attach this piece down here. I'm going to try to use my sewing machine as much as I can, because the rest of this is primarily hand sewing. And the one thing I know I can do is I can attach this to this. So I'll go ahead and do that first. And I need to make sure that the hair is all going in one direction so it doesn't get caught. And the best thing to use is clips. Line up these places. Try to tuck in all the fur that you can so you don't catch anything, and clip it. Now take that over to the sewing machine and sew it. I have the fingers sewn on, or yeah, the digits sewn on with the paw. I need to brush out some of the fur that's caught in the threading. Cheap $1 pet brush from the dollar store. And basically, mess up the fur a little bit, but not too much. Here is the paw. What we're going to do next, before we go ahead and sew that, is I'm going to stuff these beans. I flip it over, cut a little slit, and then stuff it with some basically pillow stuffing. And you have a bean. I'm going to go ahead and hand stitch this, whip stitch this closed, so that I basically don't have this coming out on the inside of the lining. I may just do a baseball stitch. I don't know if you know what that is, but a baseball stitch basically is you go a little bit in, push out, go back into the other side, a little bit past it, and it joins the two sides together without actually taking away fabric on the inside. Kind of like how, you know, a baseball is done up. If you put them tighter together, you could do something a little bit decorative with it. Again, I'm just keeping this so that it can be closed and not come apart while it's being used. This is also going to have a lining in between it. You don't necessarily have to do this. I just like to do this. You don't have to use a baseball stitch. You could use a whip stitch. I just am more familiar with this one. Interesting fact, the baseball stitch is kind of one of the stitches they use to close up during or after an autopsy. You probably didn't need to know that, but there is the main paw pad. Now I have to go ahead and stuff the beans, and we can go ahead and get to the next step. But this is also where you can add one of those squeakers if you want, you know, for the dog squeakers. I don't currently have one, but if I go to the Dollar Tree, maybe I'll get one and put it on the inside of the nose like I have for my Leo. I'm going to go ahead and stuff these and be right back. After I stuffed the finger beans themselves, I started off with hand sewing all the darts because they were a little bit difficult to get underneath the sewing machine itself. I'm just basically using a blanket stitch here to wrap around, and so that I can get the fingers done so that I can sew them onto the base itself. Once we get that, then we can go ahead and go on to the next step. Here is the outer part of the paw, the under part of the paw, all sewn together. I did machine stitch the fingers onto the base of the glove, and then this is going to go like right there, and it's going to get all sewn on. The fun part is when you turn this thing, it has to be sewn inside out, and then you turn it right side out. This is the fun part. I may be able to sew with machine up to maybe here, but for the hands, I mean the fingers themselves, it's all going to be machine sewn. Not machine sewn, hand sewn. Mainly for the fact that it's very difficult to get into those little corners for sewing. I was able to get the paw underneath the sewing machine for the sides of the paw, but unfortunately I still had to go back and hand sew each one of the fingers. Using these clips was a big help. You can get them off of Amazon, you can get them at Walmart I believe now. Basically just went around each one of the fingers and joined them together. I did put an extra couple stitches where the fingertips met to the base so that it had some strength and basically making it last longer so that when you have wiggle room and stuff like that, the fabric doesn't separate from the stitchings. It took me a little bit, but I got a majority of this hand sewn together. Well, I actually got it all hand sewn all the way around. The next step that we're going to do is work on the lining. My plan is to tack it at the top and bottom, right here, well not the top and bottom, but at the tips of the fingertips, so that when it gets turned inside out, the lining stays attached to those areas. So when you pull your hand out, you don't pull the lining out with it. For the lining, I have a snowflake pattern that I got from Joann's. This is 100% cotton, Christmas, 40% off. Again, Joann's is kind of going out of business at this point in time, so I don't know how much longer this is going to be available. But with gloves, you've got to basically make two halves and sew them together. Now with any set of gloves, I'm not going to cut this out until after I sew the fingertips, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to get into these grooves after you've already cut it. So the best thing to do is to keep it whole, trace around it, and then stitch along your sewing lines. So I'm going to go around this and pin. For this, I'm going to stitch around and then cut away. So let's go sew it. Because we're not turning this one inside out, you don't have to cut darts around the corners or notches. All you have to really do is cut to the point and keep a little bit of fabric around the outside for seam allowance. We now have to attach just the tips from there to there, and there to there, and there to there. So when it gets turned inside out, that the fabric stays in place and doesn't slide out. So I'll go ahead and do that and be right back. Now we get to turn this whole thing inside out. There really isn't too much to this, and I highly doubt you want to see me struggle, so let's go ahead and fast forward this and get to the end. Okay. Here's the paw. And I've obviously got to cut the lining a little bit shorter, but the next step is to actually stuff these toe beans with some more of that fiberfill. So I gotta go get the fiberfill and then we can stuff those. Stuffing, and I'll go ahead and get that all plushed in there. You want something about similar for like what size of cotton that you're going to use or batting, so that at least the fingers are somewhat the same fluffiness. Now again, I have the Christmas stuff, so I'm going to pull some of this shiny stuff out of there and then go ahead and remember, we're only doing the top side. So I'll hold the lining in place. Put your hand in it, wiggle them around. Make sure it all feels correct. Feels right to me. I can still grab something to be able to pick something up. So I can even pick up the brush and brush it out. You know, basically you want this to have like a giant stuffed animal. You want that to feel squishy but not hard and still firm enough to keep its shape. The next step, we're going to go ahead and close up the bottom of the paw. I have some bias tape here that I made. Here it is completed with the bias tape on it, and I really hope it fits. Now I have these little nails that I ordered off of, you know, Amazon, because nowadays you can't even find a store that sells any of this stuff because, again, it is furry specific. Okay, so this is the tricky part because I gotta get the hot glue on there, but I also have to spread the fur to the right spot. So, wish me luck. Again, this is the very first time I've ever done this. I've never done nails on a fursuit. So, please don't ruin this. Please, 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 please. So that worked out. I've never done nails before on a fursuit. So now that we got one hand done, we gotta do the whole thing over again. Well, wait a minute. This is YouTube. We can use the magic. And look, we now have two. Nails on both, manicured, and ready for the reveal. So hopefully you enjoyed that bit of information on how fursuits are made. Now, I am no expert in any way, shape, or form. I've only made 2 other fursuits in my entire life. I made our high school's mascot. I made Leo. I worked on a head for one that is still not finished, and I will be soon working on another one. So I just wanted to see if it was actually possible to take a clearance item such as this fur stocking and make them into fur paws, because of one of my friends who did want a fursuit, and I promised that I would make them a fursuit. That was 2 years ago. So this is my way of saying thank you for being my friend, and also I'm sorry it's taken me so long, but you know, life and everything else gets in the way of everything. So I really hope this is the type of content you are interested in. I am still going to be working on a fursuit, so if you want to follow along, remember to like, share, subscribe, and come back for another video when we do something crafty, home decor, cosplay, fursuits now, or cooking. So we'll see you then. Tschüssi!